This next section we'll be covering printing to darker garments, or basically printing with white ink. When you view a color of a shirt and you're trying to consider, do I or do I not need to use white ink on it? It all depends on the graphic that you're printing on top of the shirt. Say you wanted to print the color yellow-blue or royal blue to a canary yellow shirt. With the light color printing that we did in the previous section, the ink absorbs into the cotton. So when you don't use white ink, it means that you can print colors like black or a darker color to a lighter color and those type of things. But if I go back to printing like a royal blue to a yellow shirt, if I did not underbase that, the color blue would mix with the yellow and it would turn green. So you have to worry about those primary colors and colors mixing. So in that case, yes, I would have to underbase that garment. So that way the blue does not mix with the green fabric color. Alright, so what we're going to go do now is we have to prepare our shirt for white ink printing. Unlike our light color or non-white ink printing shirts, we do have to pre-treat this every time I use white ink. What will happen is the white ink will actually absorb into the cotton just like the color ink does. So by pre-treating it, it allows the white ink to sit on top of the fabric instead of absorbing in. So what I'll do is place my shirt up here, make sure it's nice and smooth. Spread the shirt out. Alright. So then I'll flip the gun sideways. Start up at the top. And what I'm looking for is the fuzz to start to show up on the actual garment. It's not to the point where it's actually wet and dripping, it's before that. Another little tool that we can use is if we go up to Home Depot and get one of these little foam rollers, what it does is help even out the pre-treatment as I roll it. You notice that it's not leaving streaks or anything like that, it's just basically making the fabric a little bit darker. I'm not using hardly any pressure, I'm just rolling over top of it, kind of evening out the pre-treat as I go. So after we've pre-treated our shirt, it is very important that we come over and pre-press the shirt. Reason being for that is cotton by its nature is a very fuzzy material. If we tried to print to this without pre-pressing it, those fuzzes would still be standing up and it would be coated with white ink. So then that fuzz is now white. And then when it comes back over and prints the color, that fuzz is still sticking up. And then when we cure, it'll fold over when we press it and it'll leave little white speckles in our image. So, just like before, I'm going to put this up here, collar off of the edge. I definitely like using release paper or my Teflon sheet for this. The release paper works a little bit better so it won't make the pre-treatment as shiny. I will press it for about 45 seconds to a minute, and what it's basically doing is drying the shirt, matting down those fibers so it makes it into a smooth surface for both layers of ink to print on. Once we get to that 45 seconds, I will pop the heat press up manually. It's pretty easy to do if you're using the Geonite DK20. This is an automatic release, so it has an electromagnet on it. So I'll have to manually release that. To do that, it's pretty simple. You push down on one corner and push up on the other. Comes up really smoothly. And now we have a pre-prepped shirt ready for printing. Take our pre-treated shirt that we did properly before during the pre-treatment section of the videos, and we're going to place this on our platen. Just like we did with our white shirts and non-white ink printing, we will take this up here. What's kind of good about the dark shirts, they've been pre-pressed so they're nice and smooth. So, same as before, I'll slide it onto our machine, making sure that it hits these posts down here at the bottom, so it's nice and level. Alright, I'll manually push it in, just so that leading edge of the platen is inside this cover, so that way our gapping lasers hit the shirt, and we'll come over, hit the up button until it stops, then let go, and now it's at the proper gap for bidirectional ink printing. Then I'll come back over here to this side, hit load, it'll draw the shirt into the machine until it gets to the ready position. We're able to send the print job over only when this light goes green. Alright, so now we're coming over to the computer. I'm going to print that same graphic that I did during our pre-treatment video for this series. So that way you see what a properly pre-treated shirt and a properly pre-pressed shirt will look versus the ones that are not. So this one has already been spooled. The cool thing about our RIP software, once you rip a job beforehand, it'll save that spooled file, so that way I don't have to re-rip it every time I want to reprint it. So what I'll do is just come up here, click on the job, and hit the print button. Or I can right click on the job and hit print from here as well. So what it's going to do now is to print our underbase. So once it has completed this underbase, the machine will automatically draw the shirt back in and start printing the color on top of the white. Now that the shirt has finished printing, we can take it off. And just like before, we want to make sure that the shirt doesn't fold over on itself, transferring ink or smearing or anything like that. The good thing about printing with a pre-treated shirt in white ink, that the ink kind of hardens, so it's not like you can sit there and just lightly brush it and have ink stick to your fingers. It would be more of a smear type thing. But just like before, I want to pull it off from the bottom first, pull it out from the sides, and then pick it up from the shoulders to take it over to my heat press. So now that the shirt is finished printing, I'm going to place it up here on my heat press, making sure that the collar's not up there, and that it'll be covered up by everything. Now a couple things, since the white ink sits on top of the fabric, we have the ability to give the ink a finish, meaning that depending on what paper you use to actually cure this with, it'll actually take on its finish. If we use the Teflon sheet, it'll give it an ultra glossy finish, sort of like the actual Teflon sheet looks in itself. If we use the release paper that we sell with at Coleman & Company, it'll give it a semi-shiny, as you can see with the reflections. So once it gets closer to the time, the heat press will give you a warning. It'll beep 3 times, and then the automatic release will release the electromagnet, and it will pop up the heat press. I like to put my hand on it, so that way it doesn't pop up. But if you're not standing right next to it, it'll pop open and it'll be ready. So we'll take our parchment paper, pull it off, and now we have a finished product. It has a nice smooth texture to it, unlike screen printing, which will have more of a rougher